What was your first memory?
I think having Grandpa Wagner, that was my mother's dad, come over when I was 3 years old and visited with Mom, and I can remember they let the oven door down so it'd be warm, and that's what I remember.
Probably 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember going out to the outhouse in the snow.
In the spring wagon. Or, yeah, a spring wagon, that's what we had.
Was that comfortable?
Yeah.
Did it have a top over it?
No, it didn't. But some of them did, but not very many.
When did you first start wanting to know about family history?
I don't know, I always liked history, period, so I don't know. Long time ago, huh?
And when did you find out when our family moved out here?
Oh, I don't know when. Probably in the 8th grade or something like that.
How often did you guys go into town?
We didn't. We didn't go to Pittsfield.
Oh, Grandpa Wheeler did?
Well, he didn't go to Pittsfield very often either. Till he got a car, and then they did. They went into Pearl.
They went to Pearl.
There was everything in Pearl then. There was barber shops and
Sold dishes, I guess.
everything. And a poultry house.
Yes, they did have poultry house.
When they were born, this town was still a thriving little community. Right now there's about 200 people that live here in Pearl. At one time about 900 people lived here. All of them mostly employed in farming or at one of the 5 pearl button manufacturing plants. When you were a kid, Pearl was famous for...
Oh, it was a good town.
What were they famous for? Why did Pearl become a town?
I don't know.
Did it have something to do with those buttons?
Oh, hell yes, they had 5 button factories. That's what built them up. Then when the plastic came in, they just died.
About when? World War II?
Probably. Can't remember, honey.
And they
Maybe a little before World War II.
And how'd they make the buttons? What was the material they were making them from?
Well, you know what a shell is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they made them out of.
And that's how the town got its name?
I don't know, honey. Pearl's buttons, yeah. That's exactly how. That's Stone's one, yeah.
This is all that's left of that pearl button manufacturing activity that employed so many people in Pearl. And according to Bernice O'Leary, the minute that plastic was invented, pretty much signed the doom of the button manufacturing operation here in Pearl, and the population declined pretty quickly. Well, there's not much to this town anymore. Got a post office, a water department. Well, people that live here mostly are engaged in farming. But at one time, this was a thriving community with bars and restaurants and hotels. So do you remember the story of going back to the Wheelers and fighting in the Revolutionary War?
They did.
And
We got all that history.
yeah, we do. And there was one story in there about one of the Wheeler brothers who served in one of the units close to George Washington.
Yes, it did.
Well, Jacob, as you know, Jacob and I have been doing some research on the internet.
Oh, have you really?
Mm-hmm. And Jacob has found that there's a place in Pennsylvania called Wheeler Fort.
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Which was sort of an outpost to stave off Indian and French attacks during the French and Indian Wars.
Yeah, French Indian War, yeah.
Do you know how the Wheeler family came to settle in Pike County?
Well, they settled in Greene County first, I believe. Well, they settled in Kentucky, I believe. And then they came to Greene County, and then they came over to Pike County, as well as I remember.
So when the Wheelers came here to settle,
They settled over. We haven't been by there yet, but they settled. Like you always wanted to go to the Twin Culvers, up from them.
did you ever go up to their homestead when you were a kid?
Oh, sure. We'd walk over there. I used to cut across the hills and go over to stay all night with them. They'd go to bed at 8 o'clock and not get up until 8 o'clock next morning. But I'd still go over about 2 or 3 times a month.
Now this would be your grandparents.
Uh-huh.
Do you ever recall your great grandparents on the Wheeler side?
No.
No.
I think this is where we turned to go to the Twin Culvers.
This is generally the area where William Wheeler and his family settled.
Yeah, back Strout. They call it Strout back there. Well, they still call it Strout.
How do you spell that?
S-T-R-O-U-T.
And now we're talking about 1820.
They had a post office there.
I don't know if they still have any buildings or not.
I don't either.
So the Wheelers came here in the 1820s with the Wagners. Were they here before the Civil War, Grandma?
The Wagners didn't come in this area. I can't even remember the name of that place.
Martinsburg.
Huh?
They came to Martinsburg, the Wagners.
That's right.
That's,
Where's Martinsburg?
well, you leave Pittsfield and go down a different way.
But not too far from here.
No,
And then how about the Smiths? When did they come here?
I don't know.
So when you were kids, none of our relatives lived over off this road.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah, Grandma and Grandpa Wheeler did. And Uncle William Wheeler, he lived out here.
So is there a homestead up here that Grandpa Wheeler lived in as a kid?
There,
Yeah,
but you can't. There isn't any house up there
but you
anymore.
can't get up there.
Did any of the Wheeler boys fight in the Civil War?
No,
No.
they weren't at the right ages.
How about World War I?
Oh yeah, a lot of them did.
Wheeler boys?
No.
No.
Oh, sure. Well, Buchanan's did.
Any Wagner boys or Kessinger boys fight in World War I?
Not World War One.
Now those twin culverts were for what? For the railroad?
Yeah,
Railroad.
they still go over it.
Now these twin culverts were built about when?
Oh heavens, I don't know.
Oh God, I don't know.
Before you?
Oh yeah, a long time before us.
So do we know how this road got its name?
No, I don't.
Oh, whoever, it's named after that creek, but I don't know.
Is this the road that John Hay lived on? Lincoln's secretary?
Yes, it is. I don't know that it was this road, but in this area. This story was.
Does our family have any connections at all going back in time here to John Hay, Lincoln's secretary?
No, but he was raised right down Bee Creek. You know where that bridge was?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was right in that area. You'd go, if you went up that creek, you know that creek came down kind of like that. That's where he was raised.
Well, no, was that country store we saw yesterday his family's or something, or?
Well, in that area,
Mm-hmm.
but not his family. He worked down there, and somebody from Pittsfield, I guess he was a smart kid or something. Anyway, he put him on his horse, took him into Pittsfield, and he went to school. There's a lot of history down there, I'll tell you.
Now, did Lincoln argue cases in the Pike County?
Oh, yeah. That's where he actually, right down in that area and going up toward, oh, let's see what towns, up along the, not in the river, but in that area.
That was his circuit?
Yeah.
How is it that we're related to John Wilkes Booth?
Grandma Wheeler was a Booth. Dora Booth that was Grandpa's wife.
And how was he related to her? Talking about John Wilkes Booth to
They
Dora
were
Booth.
both Booths. I don't know how far back it goes.
But not like first cousins or...
I don't think so.
No.
Our grandmother, my dad's mother, was a Booth.
Booths.
I don't know just how, but they always said we were related. There, see the old cellar?
Yeah.
Well, they really had snowdrifts out here. The smokehouse and cellar is the only things left.
Now, did Grandpa and Grandma Wheeler, did they build this this area, or did they buy a house that was already built?
No, they inherited it. Grandma, Mom did.
And she was a Wagner, right?
Yeah.
But that...
But she didn't get it through the wagons, got it through the Kessingers.
So that explains why it was Grandpa Kessinger who built this storm shelter.
He did build that cellar.
No, he built that after the Civil War, I assume.
No, he built it before he went back again into the Civil War.
Oh, so he came home after serving and then went back for a second
Yes,
tour, huh?
he did.
And do you know much about Old Dan?
Dan Holler?
Yep.
Yes, I do. He was a colored man.
There was a colored man lived down there, and on Grandpa Kessinger's ground, and it was down by a spring, and that's why they called it the Dan Holler. His name was Dan.
Dan, yeah, but it lived down the Dan Holler. You know where the Dan Holler is?
No, I only have heard reference to it.
Well, you know where we came up the Big Creek Hill, and Dad's land lived there. Well, you just go on down probably 3 or 4 miles, and you'd be down in the Dan Holler. I don't know how he got there, but he lived down in a little cabin down in there for a long time.
Grandpa Kessinger went back to the war. This colored man stayed with his wife and family and took care of him, helped him with the farm and everything out there where those little graves are in that area, and the big house was right down. And then when he came back from the war, they built him a cabin down there, and he lived down there. Well, my mother, until he got sick. Mom and all that, they remembered that cabin, and they knew where it was down the Dan Holler.
I guess he was probably a slave that came in. I don't know that. I don't even know. Bernice may know where he was buried.
It was difficult getting colored, get them situated, but my grandfather took care of him all his life, I guess. He's buried, I guess. I think he's buried in that county courthouse cemetery.
And he served with Illinois, what was it, the 107th or
I
something?
don't remember, but we've been there. We've seen it on the, you've been there, haven't you, Gene?
I've not, but I think Jacob went.
I think Jean.
I think
thought
so.
Aunt Jean went.
Yeah. See the barn and the shed. is
This
gone.
used to be a buggy shed over there. I can remember that. But then he's got nice barns. Got one over here too.
Oh, I remember when I was a kid, the Kessinger brick house was still standing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did Grandpa Kessinger have a pretty good sized farm for his day, Grandma?
Oh my God. Yeah, just the whole prairie, huh?
And when he left left a wife and how many children in that house to go to war?
Oh, well, 2 of them died. I think there were 4 young children.
See, there's where that
Huh?
brick house used to be, where that trailer is.
Yeah, there's not even foundation left, is there?
Oh, no, it was destroyed.
And what's a little trailer right now used to be a 2-story brick home.
Yeah.
That's right.
And here the children are buried right over here see that little cemetery.
So when he was in the Civil War, he lost his 2 youngest children, right?
Yeah, but there's there's 1, 2, 3. There's an extra grave in there. Somebody just took it up on themselves to bury their child there.
Who was unrelated to us.
No.
And his 2 children just died of natural causes like so many children did in the 1860s?
Well, I don't know what it was.
Like fever or something
Yeah.
like that. Wasn't from fire or anything
Oh,
like
no.
that.
That used to be Uncle John Kessinger's place right over there. It was a 2-story house.
That was part of Apple Kessingers.
So who was John Kessinger? Was that his grandson?
Closed up.
Brother.
Brother? Now the Kessingers, did they come over? I'm gonna back up for a minute.
From Germany.
Right, but Grandpa Kessinger himself wasn't from Germany, was he?
Wasn't what?
Grandpa Kessinger himself was not from Germany. His father was, right?
No, I think he was too.
Oh, so he was born in Germany, came over here, and
I think so.
straight away fought in the Civil War.
He did fight in the Civil War.
Yeah.
I got a history of all the different places he fought. I got it on that tombstone out there in the other.
Not Miller, but yeah.
Miller Cemetery, yeah.
Yep. In fact, I think I have a photo of that.
Yeah.
So how do the Kessingers relate to the Wheelers?
Married the daughter.
So the Kessinger boys married more than one Wheeler daughter?
Oh, yeah, I think so, didn't they, Naomi? Well, yeah. And Allie.
They were George Smith.
Huh?
Uncle George Smith. His wife was Uncle George Smith's wife was a Kessinger.
Yeah.
But Aunt Allie wasn't. I don't know. There, take a picture of Uncle Obie's smokehouse. That's all that's left of his place.
Now,
Yes.
now who was Uncle Obie? He had a
Mom's brother
so Grandma Wheeler's brother.
and be Angie's granddad.
So he'd be Obie Wagner. It's still owned by a Wagner.
Harry Eager owns it.
So do we know when the Wagners settled in Pike County?
Yeah, they came in after the Wheelers quite a while.
I remember as a kid hearing Aunt May talk about Jesse James and his gang coming through.
No, he did. They came over to where she was raised, and they made him. That gang made my grandmother or great grandmother, I don't know which, cook for him.
Breakfast?
Well, I don't know what meal, but they came in, they camped out, and they had to cook for him. Yeah.
They pay him?
Well, hell no, they were just glad when they decided to go.
I bet that was a story you kids liked to hear when you were younger.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard Mom or Dad talking about they used to go, you know, where we went through the Twin Carbons. We went on up, Grandma and Grandpa lived up there, and I think they did visit, you know, stop there to get something to eat. Well, I don't know if it's Jesse James, but I know some of the outlaws used to come there and knock and want something to eat, and they called them bums then, and they'd feed them.
And then did they pay, or?
No,
Oh, they didn't pay.
no, just a handout.
Michelle asked me a question about the woman who moved to Denver.
Oh, that was Aunt Nellie. That was my dad's sister, Nellie. And she homesteaded out there. She homesteaded, had to live on that for, I don't know, I can't tell you how many years she had to live there.
Now, didn't she work for the railroads? Work on the rail cars or something?
Yeah, yes, honey, she did everything. Yeah, she was on the railroad.
That was Nellie Carson. That was my dad's sister, Nellie Wheeler. Well, what they call these girls that was on the trains, good time girls? I don't know. She was like a waitress on the train, and she went out west, and she homesteaded land, and that's the land we are part owners of. It's on out of Denver north. I think she's about 18 when she started working for the railroad. I think she's married a couple times, but not that I know. I never did see any husbands, but I know her name was Carson when she died.
Well, she worked on the Katy Railroad, worked her way out to Denver. She was like a waitress. And the Katy Railroad had restaurants ever so many 100 miles, I guess. But she worked in restaurants. And then she went out there and homesteaded that ground.
She was something else.
So how old was she when she left Pearl?
Probably 16.
So if she was your dad's sister, she probably left somewhere in the 1890s?
Oh, I think so.
And what would make a young woman in the 1890s just by herself get up and take off and go west?
Well, she had a lot of guts and did it, that's all.
Did she ever get married?
Yes, she did, but I don't know how many times. But she never had children.
And every Christmas she'd send us a big box, and each one of us had something. And at Easter time she'd send us something. She married 2 times, I think. The last time was Carson. Her name was Carson. Then she came back after my grandpa died and formed the home place with horses. And then she bought out there where Aunt Maye and Uncle Frank lived. She owned that, and then she decided to go back to Denver. She was quite an Aunt Nellie. She was always good kids. She had this old Victrola, and she had all kinds of records, and she had, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them, old black crows. And us kids could go over there and play them records. We'd walk from our house over to the home place just to get to listen to those records. I don't know whatever happened to that. I think Aunt May had it last.
She died in Denver. That's where she landed. That was her home, Denver. And that's where she died. She came back and took care of Grandma Wheeler for a while, but she finally went back out.
Now you mean your grandmother Wheeler?
Uh-huh. That would be her mother.
Now this farm belongs to
Denny.
Denny, and Denny is the sharecropper? That's not the right word, is it?
Yeah.
No, I don't think we'd call to tell him that.
No, but he's your,
He's
he
a
farms
tenant.
your land.
He's
He's
a
tenant farmer.
tenant
That's the word I was
farmer, yeah.
looking for. Now, I guess being a sharecropper has different connotations from
Yes, it does.
your generation.
See, there used to be 2 houses right there.
And there used to be houses all the way down that road.
Oh, yeah.
That big, who's in that big house down there?
Who owned it last? Harold and Winnie.
Yes, I did, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's Uncle
Yeah.
Frank and Aunt May's house. Mhm.
And Draper's used to, Jice Draper used to live there where that barn is. There used to be a big house right there.
Pretty much most of this land around here is Wheeler land, isn't it?
No.
No?
Kessinger and, oh, I can't think of it.
Do you still know any
All
Kessingers?
this land used to be Grandpa Kessinger.
Ah. Do you still know any Kessingers?
There isn't very many around. I don't know.
I don't think there's any left. Is there?
There's Paul Kessinger. I don't know that he ever
But
died.
he was not related.
No, but he's. There's Glenn Kessinger.
Who?
Glenn Kessinger would have been related. He lives.
Yes, he would. But
He lives over in Griggsville.
oh, he does, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I guess he's about the only one left.
So now, Grandpa Kessinger would not have been alive when you were born, correct, grandmother?
I was dead 1 year. Or he was dead 1 year when I was born.
So, Grandma, when you were born, about 4 years later, you may remember there was the great flu epidemic.
Yes,
And
I know about the flu epidemic.
how did that affect Pike County?
A lot of
It
people
just had
died.
everybody either dying or nearly dying.
And as I recall from reading, that flu affected mostly young and healthy people.
And we had one doctor, but Dr. Thurman, and then there was a doctor from Nebo, I can't remember that name. They took care of everybody.
Who was sick? You didn't get the flu, though, because you were too young and missed it, I suspect.
I noticed on television they're having an epidemic of mumps now.
Oh my God, I did have that.
I haven't had them.
Did you ever get it?
No,
Oh,
I probably will. I had whooping cough twice. I heard my mom talk about it, but that was about the time I was born, 1920, and that was 1918. My mother had it real bad, and Bernice claims that she helped cook when my mom was sick with the flu.
Seemed like they brought something up to the yard and gave it. They were quarantined, I believe. But other than that, I don't remember. Bernice knows all about that. She said she stood on a stool and cooked dinner and washed dishes, and she and Tuff.
I don't know how we didn't lose some of us, but I stayed up and so did little Tuff, Kenneth. He was just a kid, but he would do whatever you told him. They realized, I'm sure at that age, what would he have been, about 2, I guess, or anyway.
Well, you'd have been 4 because it was 1918 when the flu
That's
epidemic
right.
came.
I was 4 and he was 2. Uncle Bud was in between. He was deathly sick. My mother was sick. My dad was. They were all in bed except this little boy and me. And we had to get the cattle in so the calves could suck, you know. Oh my God, that little kid. You tell him to stand in the doorway and gateway, and he would. They never let the cows go in without the calves.
And did you lose any neighbors to the flu?
Oh yeah, but I don't remember, honey. Everybody was so sick then. I don't recall. But I know. And Sarah Buchanan was sick, my mother was down, and my dad was really sick. Well, Uncle Bud and no, not Uncle Bud. Uncle Tuff and I were the only two on our feet. So, you know, and I remember my mother lying in bed and telling her how to do biscuits and how to mix them up. We started the fires. I know. But poor old Dr. Thurman. Now the doctors really worked. Now they took care of that whole community. I don't think he ever slept.
And that used to be Uncle Pete, one of Uncle Pete's farms, that barn over there.
Who was Uncle Pete?
Kessinger.
Kessinger, he was Grandpa Kessinger's son. No, one that
Brother.
brother.
And there's your Bee Creek store.
Right here to the left, right? Now, is this the store that you guys used to go to as a kid?
Oh yeah.
Walk down there and get a penny's worth of candy. Right there.
And it used to have good business.
Well,
In
yeah.
fact, it used to have the mail there too.
Did you ever used to have to go get the mail for your family and bring it back to the house there?
No, they delivered the mail. We had a rural mail.
Who owned this house here?
Fishers. I went with that Fisher boy for 4 years.
Here's Uncle Joe Gooden's. That is our uncle.
That was our Uncle Joe Gooden's house there.
And who was he related to? Or how was he related to us,
My
rather?
mom's
The Wagner honey.
His mom was a Wagner.
And didn't you tell me something about Grandpa Wheeler used to do the county roads?
Yeah,
Oh, we did
for years, 18 years, I think.
He used to do this road we're on?
Yeah, I guess he did. I think he came down to Bee Creek and Old Pearl and where else?
And around by Nebo out that way.
Yeah.
And I expect that when he did that, he wasn't doing that with a motorized vehicle, was he?
No.
No,
How did he do it?
they had horses.
Now, you guys went to this school.
Yep. I went 8 years there. I think B just went 1 year there. And then they built that.
Just 1 year.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
And that was a long walk up home.
But that was a good schoolhouse.
Oh, yeah.
How many years you go to this? You said 8 years.
I did.
Did you walk here or did you ride a horse here?
We walked mostly.
They're starting to build houses down in here.
How many kids were in there?
All 8 grades. All 8 grades are in there.
So what, 30 kids?
Oh, at least.
Oh,
More than that. One teacher.
well, we got pictures of the old Pearl School. I don't know where they are.
I went to Bee Creek School 8 years. Then I went to Pearl High School. I lived in Pearl there at Merle Franklin's. The hardest thing was working my way through school. That was hard. Because back then they didn't have clothes dryers, you know, and I'd hang out diapers on the line before I'd go to work or go to school, and then I'd come home for lunch and I'd have to dry dishes before I went back to lunch.
Back to
And
school.
I worked.
And this is for the family you were working for?
I worked at the store and at the house, both. Yeah.
And then lived at the house for room and board, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Until you got out of high school.
Until I got out of high school.
Bee Creek and Pearl.
And how long did you go to Bee Creek?
8 years.
Yeah. And then Pearl through high school?
4 years. Walked 2.5 miles to grade school and 8 miles a day for 3 years to high school. And a half a year, Jean and I batched, and then a half a year I worked for Alpha and Merle Franklin. But the other 3 years I walked.
So what was the first school you went to?
Bee Creek, but it was a different, not that school that's there now. There was a wooden school there. I only went there 1 year. I don't know if I even went 1 year.
And why'd you move in with Uncle Frank?
Because I was sick so much, and he just decided to take me home with him, and he doctored me.
And you stayed right there through high school?
Oh, sure.
Mhm.
Gosh, Aunt Hazel, Aunt Hazel always said I was her sister, but it was. Anyhow, she and I were like sisters, but and little Donnie, I loved him.
And when did you move out of their house?
Oh, I don't know, honey. I can't remember.
Did you move out of their house to get married to Grandpa?
Yeah,
Of course, I don't ever remember being there. I could remember coming home once in a while. She had ear trouble, and she had what they call, I don't know what they call it, where her ears would break and run. And Uncle Frank was a druggist, and he wanted to take her up and doctor her that winter, and she was much better. And they didn't have children, so they wanted her to stay, and she did, and she just never did come back home. Yes, and she went to college 1 year, I think, when she and Uncle Ed got married. Out of Ottawa, someplace, junior college, I guess.
When she was 10 years old, she went up to stay with Aunt May and Uncle Frank because she was sick a lot. I was only 1 year old when she left. And it was we had such bad winters and things at that time. And Aunt May and Uncle Frank said they was gonna take another little girl in. They already had Hazel. And they talked Mom and Dad into letting her go up there so she would be easier for her. And Mom said that was hardest thing she had to do was give up that little girl. Because you only got to see her once, maybe twice a year.
All the way through.
All the way, from the time she left
Till when?
well, after she got married, they'd see her more often.
Somebody moved it, and they used it for a barn that used to sit right down here in this grove of trees.
What kind of church?
Church of Christ. You see it sitting right over there? Cattywampus over there.
but it used to sit right here.
Right in there, in the grove of trees, yeah.
It was pretty.
So did you guys go to that church?
No, actually, it went out to Old Pearl.
What denomination?
It was Church of Christ.
And when did Grandpa and Grandma Wheeler move up on this road?
When Bernice, right after Bernice was born, you were born over at Grandma and Grandpa's, and then they moved over here.
So you were born in the house, not in a hospital.
Oh, they didn't have hospitals around here then, honey.
So I expect for you too, Aunt Jean, you were also born in a house, not in a hospital.
Yeah, all of us were.
No. The rest of them were all born at home.
Uh-huh.
And Mom baked cherry pie for the doctor. And he ate cherry pie while he's there.
For your birth.
Yeah.
What was the first hospital?
In Pittsfield.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you when it was built, Dick and Patty were just toddlers, and we went down. Wasn't even dedication, just kept showing that it was a big crowd there. That was a blessing for Pittsfield, that hospital.
It was mostly uphill going home. Wasn't bad coming down.
What about a 2-mile walk?
Oh, it's more than 2 miles, about 2.5 miles.
I expect the grandpa kept this road in good shape too.
Yeah. Kept all the roads good.
Was that an elected position?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he was really one of the fortunate ones when it was so bad, no work or anything. He always had work.
So you're talking about the Depression or the farm crisis of the 20s?
Depression.
The Depression. Do you remember whether Pike County was affected by the farm crisis in the 1920s?
Oh, of course. You mean that we didn't have any crops?
Mm-hmm.
And if we did, it wasn't worth it. Of course I do. You'd be surprised what kids remember. But we never went hungry. And we never did without clothes. But some poor people sure did, huh?
Did any of your neighbors lose their land during that time?
Oh, lots of them. I was always sorry I didn't go, and I could have gotten the money to get my mother's place, but I was always afraid to overextend myself and then I'd lose everything.
You think that those Depression years had a lasting impact on how you've lived your life from that point forward?
Well, we never had a dime given to us. And we always said that the ones that went on relief stayed on relief. Most of them did.
Well, I wasn't that old, so I really don't I'm sure it affected us all. Because we had... Well, of course, when you live on the farm, you raise everything you eat, and you have your own meat. So that way, we weren't affected. I mean, we always had plenty to eat. And Mom made all of our own clothes, so I think they all had a very hard time making a go of it, because most of them worked for other people, a lot of them did, and they all helped each other. I know when we butchered, we did our own butchering at home. Dad always gave whoever helped meat, and they helped each other a lot.
And did that carry on through the Depression?
Mm-hmm.
Our bank closed in Pearl, and it's where the post office is now. Do you know where the post office is?
Yep.
Okay, that used to be the bank, and I think it went down in 1929. And I remember the WPA. Dad was a road commissioner, and he worked these people. And we had one old fella that he had been a pretty big farmer at one time. Said he broke down and cried when he had to go to work on WPA.
Because of his pride?
Yeah.
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 And how long did Grandpa Wheeler serve as a road commissioner?
About 8 years, I think. Eight, I believe. They did real good with scoops, and then he had an old grader, and they did a lot of it with a shovel. And, he had a pretty big area, Pearl Township. Nobody had anything. The only thing that bothered me was the ones that was on WPA. their families got oranges and blankets and everything. But anybody that made their own living, they didn't get nothing. And the only thing we got at school was raisins, some raisins during the recess. But that was the only surplus that I can remember we ever got.
There wasn't somewhere along this road a truck garden that they used to maintain?
It's up farther.
Yeah, they did.
Every spring.
That was a good garden.
Did you guys help plant it?
No, we were gone then.
So,
We were gone. That was after we moved away. And we used to stop in this house right up here and have cookies on the way home. And sometimes a cat would jump out of the flower bed.
not me, I didn't.
I did. Helen and I
Uncle
did.
Bud didn't either.
Helen and Tuff and I did.
Why didn't you stop there, Grandma?
Well, just because I wasn't going to eat after darn cat.
Well, it tasted pretty good. And then she made Howard play the organ for us.
Who was Howard?
Her son.
Was he of school age like you?
No, he was older. He just never married.
He could play it
Oh,
by
he-
ear for everything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Right here's where the garden was.
Just
I
this
think
stretch
it
here,
was,
huh?
huh?
Right here.
Right here.
And boy, they really had a garden.
Did they sell some of those vegetables, or was it all for
No.
their own consumption?
No, they gave them away, and
Well, one time we had a lot of fruit trees, and Dad went into town, and Mom had canned all the peaches she wanted, and he told somebody to come out and they could pick the peaches. Next time Dad went to town, they said, "Did you bring us the peaches?" He said, "Hell no, if you can't come and pick them, just leave them on there." They wanted you to pick them, bring them to them. Now this was the hard part.
Walking up this hill?
Oh my God.
Now, is this Dead Man's Hill?
No, it's
No?
over on the other road. This is Beaton Creek. Dead Man's Hill went on over like you're going over to the cows.
And what's the story again on Dead Man's Hill? Some guy was messing around with somebody's wife or something?
Yeah, and he shot him.
And did the fellow who did the shooting, did he ever go to court?
No.
nobody ever brought turning back.
See, Dad built that shed back there. Well, it's,
So you figure they didn't turn him in because they figured that was justice.
I guess.
And how did Grandpa Wheeler meet Grandma Wheeler?
They all went to school. I told her on it. Well, they used to go to church at Old Pearl, and Mom always said that that's where she got acquainted with him. And then he went to school at Old Pearl, and she went to Bee Creek. Old Pearl was out there by Aunt May's house.
What was Grandpa Wheeler like? Your dad?
Well, he had a temper. About once a month he threw a fit. But he liked to hunt. But he never had too much time for us kids. But other than once a month him and throwing a Charlie horse, well, he was pleasant to be around.
Did you ever talk about the fact that most of his kids had left so early?
No, because there's no work. There wasn't any work. And Dad always made us good living, and Mom worked too. But all the time they were married, they never ran a store bill. And they raised, and he always let Mom take care of the money, write the checks. But he was a hard worker.
And how'd they make it through the Depression?
He was road commissioner, some, and then when he wasn't a road commissioner, he would work on the roads, and they raised cattle and hogs. And Dad, he didn't think we ought to go to school if it's raining. He'd be down doing the chores, and Mom would say, "You kids get your coats on and get going." We'd take off so we wouldn't miss school. But when were they born?
Yep.
18 and, let's see, Dad was born December 4th, 1892. Mom was born December the 4th, 1894.
And they were both born in Pike County?
Uh-huh.
Did they go to school?
Who?
Grandpa Wheeler and Grandma Wheeler? Your mom and
Oh,
dad?
yeah, Dad went out to Old Pearl, right across from where Aunt Maye and Uncle Frank lived. And Mom went to Bee Creek, only in the old schoolhouse. There was another one there.
Did they both graduate 8th grade?
They probably did. Mom went from when she was a young girl and worked up at Jacksonville at a college before she got married. Dad always worked on the farm for his dad. But they probably went to 8th grade.
So how old was your mom when you were born?
I think she was about 21. I was the oldest, then Uncle Bud, then Uncle Tuff, and then the be Aunt Jean, and she was, I think, about 6 years younger than the next one.
What was Osie like?
Very kind. Never too tired to play with us. She'd get out and play games with us. And we knew to mind, well, the thing was Dad. And they worked together making us mind. But they never hollered at us. We all sat down and ate at one time. And Mom worked, washed on the board, made all of our clothes, even to the boys' winter coats. And she fed hogs, milked cows, but she was never cross with us.
Was she a good cook?
Yeah, real good cook. She was cooked that you didn't have to have anything fancy. I mean, we raised almost all of her stuff.
Oh, she was a wonderful person. I guess when I took care of her 3 years before she died. And she never, ever complained when she knew I was working. Her door had a sliding door between it and my shop. If she really needed me, she'd ring the bell. But very seldom she'd ring the bell. And it'd be fine, but when I went to the grocery store, I came home one time, she said, "I hope you enjoyed yourself visiting with people." And I said, "Mom, I wasn't visiting, I was buying groceries." And that's the only time she ever scolded me for being gone. But she was a wonderful person. She wasn't hard to take care of. Staying out past time my mom told me I had to be in.
Yeah.
My dad would tell me, of course, he was always asleep, and my mom would always cough when I came in, and she told me one minute, "Young lady, I'm going to tell your dad one of these nights."
Why did she cough, though?
Let me know she knew I was late.
What's the latest you ever snuck in?
Oh, not that late. Not that minute, because she would have whaled the tar out of me.
And do you think that Grandpa Wheeler never really knew?
Uh-uh.
He was snoring away?
It's snoring away.
And I've heard that she used to shave Grandpa Wheeler?
Well, yeah, I'd like to.
And how did she do it?
She had a straight razor.
And he just,
He's too
describe
darn
that
lazy to
process.
shave himself.
Mm-hmm.
So she had to shave him, trim his hair 2 or 3 times. Every week or so she had to trim that hair. Yeah.
Just
Then they had a razor strap that sharpened that razor, you know. I also got that used on me several times.
By who?
By him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Mom and I we did all the milking after the boys left. Mom and I did all the milking, and Helen was supposed to do the evening dishes while we were out doing the milking, and we got up there after we'd run the milk through and carried the milk out, and Helen hadn't done the dishes, so Dad says, you just help her do those dishes. So I hauled off and slapped Helen. And she screamed. About that time, Mom came in, picked up a tin pipe pan, gave Helen a spank. Helen, to this day, has never forgiven me.
Did you laugh?
Sure.
Now, she was a Wagner, right?
Oh, yeah. Her mother was a Kessinger.
Mm-hmm.
That's where she got the money. All this land was on Grandpa Kessinger's.
You know, I don't know much about your two brothers.
I got two of the best brothers ever lived and the hardest working. And see, my uncle, well, was our uncle. And Uncle Frank's oldest brother, he owned a bank out west. And he would hire, and he owned a lot of land, and he would hire most anybody to come from Pearl, because they were usually good workers. So when the kids graduated from 8th grade, there was absolutely nothing for them to go to.
Talking about work.
So they went out west. And my uncle, he kept them. That's how Uncle Bud got his ranch. But Uncle Tuff was so good. He was a good mechanic, a natural one. I mean, he could just do it. But they both went to school. They went to, the government used to have, like, you could go to
Extension schools.
extension schools,
Mhm.
yeah. And they both did very well. They never were without jobs. Anybody who wanted to work and study, they got good jobs
Now, this is in Montana, right?
in Montana. And that was Uncle Bud's home. But then not Uncle Tuff, because he got on, what he would do, he would keep the engines and everything going, all of that kind of stuff. He always had work.
Now, one of the things I'm confused about is which one is Kenneth?
He,
Yeah, which nickname is Kenneth? Tuff or Bud?
Tuff is the younger one.
Kenneth?
Uh-huh.
And then what's Bud's actual first name?
Lauren.
Loren. Okay. Loren, right? And were you surprised they never came back to Pearl from Montana to live?
Why would they do that, honey? You couldn't make a living here. And they made good livings out there. Because the West was being opened up and they were there.
Well, I had two brothers. Lauren was the oldest, and Kenneth. And Kenneth was 2 years older than me. Bud was 4 years older than me. And Bud was 16 when he graduated from high school. And he took the train from Pearl and went to Montana. He herded sheep for Uncle Orry Smith. We had several cousins out there.
And they moved from Pike County out there at an earlier time?
Yeah, real early. They'd been out there for years.
Hmm.
And then 3 years later, he came back, and Tuff went out with him. I caught up with Tuff in the 8th grade because he never liked to study. And in high school, I was working my way through high school, and he was walking in, coming in, or riding a horse, and he'd always copy his lessons off of me. Well, I missed a question in my English, and Miss Bly said, did somebody copy? Of course, Tuff said no. I got a 0.
Because she thought you did the copying?
Well, she knew I didn't, but he said no. So went on, and the next time we got in trouble. I said, Tuff, that's it. You're not copying another thing off of me. So he quit high school. Eventually, Kenneth, he wasn't a dumbbell. He had his own company. He helped build a lot of those roads out in Montana and out in there.
Now, he died before your...
Yes, he did. He had an aneurysm and died.
How old was he when he died?
84, I believe.
Your other brother died...
2 years ago.
Yeah, so he died in 2004, 2005.
Probably 2004. I got his obituary in there. He had cancer and died.
But he left property out there too from his life's work, right?
Oh, yes. He sold his ranch to a young couple. The man was from New York and his wife was from Australia.
Oh.
And they were back through here last summer to stop and see me. And they bought his ranch and then have added on a lot since. And after Bud's wife died, he left the ranch and moved in town there in Sheridan.
So how old were your brothers when they left?
I see. I guess Bud was 18 and went out. He went 1935. How long ago has that been? I think he was 18, and Tuff he went out and stayed 2 years, then come back and got Kenneth, and I would say he was 18. Well, Bud had already knew he'd have a job herding sheep, and them and another cousin went out the last time and got work. At that time, you just couldn't. Bud alone went out and stayed 2 years, and when he come back, he tried to get a job at what they call, it's Oland's now, but the Western, and he couldn't get a job. So he and Tuff went back out to Montana.
And never came back after that?
Not to stay. But it was 14 years before Tuff ever got to come home. And he went to the Navy while he was out there.
So was he in
World War II.
World War II? I didn't know Tuff was in World War II.
Yeah.
And how old was he?
Well, let's see. I would say he was probably 20. And he was in the Navy.
And Bud didn't go in the military?
No, he was married at that time and farming. Tuff was quiet, but he joked a lot, and he was easygoing, and he didn't like to go to school. But he'd say to Mom, "Don't you want me to stay home and help you wash?" But you know, he ended up making more money than all the rest of us because he could do anything, but he just didn't like school.
And what kind of things did he like to do?
He was a mechanic, and he drove bulldozers and built roads, and he helped build the Alaska pipeline.
The pipeline or the highway?
Pipeline, I think.
The pipeline, so in the 70s?
I guess so, because he worked on construction for a long time.
What relative from your childhood do you remember as being the most colorful?
Oh, I don't know. A lot of them were colorful.
My cousin Ethel Smith. Because we just got in a lot of trouble. My brother Tuff and her brother, when we were in high school, first 6 months, we had a room together. And we'd go to the ball games, and we'd come home, and they'd been in our room or messing around. And all through the years, we've kept real close, and even today, she calls me, or I call her at least once or twice a month.
I guess Uncle Jess Smith. I guess because he liked kids and he never was too tired to, if you went down there, he'd get the popcorn out and pop popcorn and go sell and get apples and play games with us. And he plant his corn and he never gets straight rows. And Grandpa Wheeler just cuss because Uncle Jess's rows was so crooked. And then if they'd ship hogs, he could get out of Dad what Dad's brought, you know, but he wouldn't tell Dad how much his brought. Said just a little bit better. Of course, if you knew Grandpa, he had this cuss a little. But Uncle Jess was, and he was Mom's cousin, and he married Dad's sister, so he's double relative.
Who was the oldest relative you remember from your childhood?
Oh, Aunt Sarah Buchanan, I guess. She lived next to us, and she was my mother's aunt. She was a Wagner.
Remember how old she was?
No. Oh, I know how old she was when she died. She was up over 100. She lost her eyesight, because like I'm losing this eyesight. But she was bright as a dollar.
Oldest one. Oh. Uncle Frank and Uncle Jess. Uncle Frank was good to the kids. Every Easter he'd bring. Always wanted to go to Dan Holler and have a Easter egg hunt. We'd carry our dinner down there and he'd hide eggs and we just had a good time.
So what were fashions like when you were in high school?
Oh, we had nice clothes.
Were you a flapper?
I guess I was. I didn't miss much.
Were most of the girls in high school flappers?
Oh, I'd say so.
Well, I mostly wore feed sack dresses that Mom made. They were, I don't know, they were just print dresses, and then the dresses were short.
When did you get your first store-bought outfit?
Well, to tell you the truth, I got the hand-me-downs and Aunt Jean got the new ones. But I didn't get many. And then Aunt Jean bought me this, this formal here when I was in senior in high school.
Back then, you know, the boys would have a fit if they had to wear patch blue jeans. Now they tear holes in their blue jeans. And we just wore dresses and jackets and spallo. We didn't wear slacks. First time I had a pair of slacks on, my grandmother Wheeler was there, and she said, "Weaver, make that girl go and change her clothes, put some decent clothes on."
Did you ever have long hair?
No, not very often. I've had it get longer, but no.
Wasn't the fashion?
Well, it was just about like today, huh? Just whatever you wanted, I think.
Never really long.
Oh yeah, you ought to have seen it even in later years when they put your hair up on top of your head, you know, remember? Oh, it's been 40 years ago. Heck, my hair stood way up like this.
And when you unraveled it, could you grab it in the middle of your back?
No, about down to here.
Huh.
But I did have that picture But I don't know what I did with it.
But none of you girls ended up with boys from this area, right?
No. Helen married a boy from Campsville.
Well, that's not too far away, though.
Helen, no.
And how'd you meet Frank?
When I went to Streeter to work.
Who was your first serious boyfriend?
Oh, I don't know. Probably Roger Van Buren, because I went with him longer, but just like every other kid, I had a girl boyfriend from word go.
Martin Fisher.
Oh, we went by his house today, right?
A little bit older than me. I went with him 4 years. He married a cousin of mine, and he's dead now. Married Catherine Dren.
Vale.
Where'd you meet him?
We went to fair. I don't know if you've heard of Vera and C.W. Curtis. Well, she was my cousin, and Vale was good friends of C.W. And I started up there with another fella. And then Vale and I met while we was up there. He rode up with us. And from then on, I was 16, I think.
Did he go to high school with you?
No, he lived way down in the southern part of Calhoun County.
Do you remember when you first heard radio for the first time?
Yeah. Over at Grandpa Wheeler's. They had a radio. And heck, my folks had a radio as soon as they get one. They had the first television too.
Do you ever much care for listening to the radio and music and stuff?
Oh, I suppose I did, but it never. I never had to do it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have electricity. Oh, I heard it on, different places, but not until I went to Streeter, I didn't have any. Molly and what was that? I can't even think of what it was. Fibber, McGee, and Molly, yeah.
Mom and them didn't get a radio until I was out of high school.
And if you recall, what was your favorite radio show of those times?
It seemed like it was colored people.
And when did you get married to Ed O'Leary?
I was out of high school. So when did I go out of high school? 32?
Yeah, so it goes about then. So you're about 18.
That's when I was back to when I got married.
So when you met him, was he in high school?
Yeah,
Yeah.
senior.
Yeah.
See, I went to Grand Ridge 3 years. Then I went to Ottawa. And that's where I graduated.
Did he sing when he was in high school?
Did he sing
Sing, yep.
all over the country?
He
He
did?
had a master's in music, honey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, he did.
What would they do? Invite him to come sing and then he'd...
No, they hired him. That was one part of our living, was his singing.
What did he do? Take the train from place to place?
No, hell no, he took the car.
Did you go with him when he did that?
No, I never did. That wouldn't have been smart to do. He got 2 masters and a doctor. And we never borrowed a dime. We did without.
But you're glad once you got out of school.
Oh, I don't know. He couldn't have, like he said, he couldn't have made it. He couldn't, because he did not go to get free stuff at the university, because he didn't.
Do you remember where you were living when your son Dick was born?
Oh, sure. In Kansas.
Why were you in Kansas?
That's where Ed was going to school.
And where were you born, or where were you living when my mom Pat was born?
In Streeter, I think.
And how about Jeannie?
And Jean?
No, Jeannie, your daughter, Jeannie.
Oh, Jeannie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hell. I shouldn't be able to forget that. I think in Ottawa, I think.
Yeah. How did you meet Frank Farrington?
I met him in Streeter when I was working on a glass company. I was going to work, and he lived just a block over from me, and I met him going to work one morning. And then he worked J.C. Penney's, and I used to see him in there.
And when did you get married to Frank?
41,
And then Roger was born.
47,
When was Jimmy born?
50. We were 21 when we were married, so he was going on 22. Well, I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when my husband was in service. He was in the Navy. We didn't have much choice.
You got drafted?
Yeah.
So he waited till the draft before he went
Well, he knew he was going, so that's what he wanted to go in, was the Navy. I landed in Philadelphia. Frank was supposed to have us a room, but he was shipped out the day before, so we landed there. A friend of mine went with me from Streeter, Ruth Rainwater. And Frank had said, if I'm not at the train, go to the officers' club. So he wasn't at the train, so I went to the officers' club. They told us where he thought we could get a room. So we take a bus and go way out to Conestoga Street, and fortunately I had my wedding certificate with me showing I was married. She didn't because she wasn't married. So she got a room and I got a room, and we got ready to come back downtown to get our luggage. So when we were on the bus, we said we'd asked this Mr. Sharkey where you'd apply to get a job, and he said, well, it's on the way back in to Philly. Have him stop. So we stopped, we applied. I went to work the next morning for General Electric. I was an inspector, parts out of the carpenter's department, pieces of wood that went in different pieces of equipment. Oh, they made all kind of different equipment, and these pieces all had to be so much heat put on them and everything.
So I suspect you worked with a lot of women.
A lot of men.
Yeah? Older fellas that...
Some of them weren't.
Yeah.
Some of them were family members that didn't have to go in service, and some of them were older. Yeah.
Not the Rosie the Riveter thing that...
No. He was in the Pacific, and I lived there 3 years. He went back to Penny's there in Streeter, yeah. And then we were transferred to Bloomington, Illinois. And we went from there to Kewanee, Illinois. And then from Kewanee to Leon, Iowa. Leon, Iowa, we're back to, let's see, not Peoria. And then from Peoria to Gary. Then from Gary to Pittsfield.
And he was working at J.C. Penney's. Now, he had a pretty illustrious career with him, right?
Oh, yeah. He was manager at J.C. Penney stores.
And I think
Not then, but
after...
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you and Frank got divorced in, what, the 19...
63. I've lived here 30 years in this house. I lived, when I first moved back here, I rented a place. And then I got married to Glenn and lived in his home till he died. 2 years. He just lived 2 years to the day. And then I bought this place.
Olam's.
And how did you come about working there?
I rode down with, I was taking care of my aunt, great aunt, and her 2 brothers for $3 a week. And Lowell Wagner, that's Andy's dad, got me an application. He was working at the Western at that time. And then we had a cousin that was personnel lady, and he got me my first job.
Now, did Vail, was he in the military?
No, but he worked for the Navy when he built LSTs. He helped build 161 of them up at Seneca, Illinois. You know where Seneca is? And we lived up there.
Now, an LST was a landing craft for the invasions, right? And
Yeah.
does he know where his went? Did his go to for the invasion in Africa or the invasion in Europe?
I think it was Africa.
And when did you guys get married?
April the 5th, 1942. It'd be 65 years
Wow.
this year. He was he worked at the box board and he had to go up and to get in, he was enlisted or sent to up for his exam for the Army, and he didn't pass because he had a real bad rupture. And he was working at the box board, and then when he came back, they didn't want to hire him back, so he worked at Beale Tool Company. And then at night, he would go to welding school at Wood River High School. And that's how come he got to go up to Seneca. And he had to take tests, and he welded for the Navy.
And how long did you do that?
It was through Chicago Bridge and Iron, about 3 years. And then he went on the road for Chicago Bridge and Iron. He built water towers and different things.
Around the country?
We lived in Cleveland, and we lived in Carson, Kansas, and up around Joliet, Illinois. And then he was sent to Blue Island after Jane was born, and he decided he'd come home. He didn't want.
And when was Jane born?
December 24th, 1945.
And David?
August the 1st, 1947.
Do you remember where you were when you first heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yes. I was in the living room and down in Pearl, Mom and Dad's. I certainly do. We were listening to the news on the radio.
Oh, I was in our apartment there in Streeter. He had a brother that was at Pearl Harbor. He was on the U.S. His ship went down. He wasn't killed, though. He had been on that ship. I can't remember what one it was. His name was Bud. Jim was his name. They called him Bud.
I was working at the Western.
Oh, so you were already making ammunition.
Yeah.
And how'd you hear about it?
Oh, I guess through the grapevine, you know. There was 10,000 people worked there.
And how did the mood change in there when you heard it?
I don't know. I can't remember, but you just went ahead working.
Did you have any friends that were lost their lives in World War II?
Yes. A Moore boy from Pearl. I can't think of their last name. I can see him, but I can't recall their last name. And then a Peppers boy from this area. And Merlin Martin.
These are all kids you went to school with? Were you surprised to hear that Aunt Jean's husband Frank was going to join the Navy?
No, I knew he didn't. He didn't join it. He got told where to go.
Drafted.
Yeah, he was drafted.
And how come Grandpa O'Leary didn't go into World War II?
My husband,
Mm-hmm.
because he had a family. and then he couldn't pass, I think it was he and a friend of ours, I've forgotten about him, they went and tried to get in, but they couldn't. Both of them had bad eyes and they couldn't get in.
Well, my brother Tuff did. But anyway, his ship was anchored in Philadelphia one time, and I was working for this man, and he got acquainted with him, and then every time they'd come into port, he'd always call up Nick McBarian, and he'd take out 2 or 3 of Tuff's buddies, and so he liked that.
So you remember what it was like to live without indoor plumbing and electricity?
Oh, sure. Vale my husband is the one that puts electricity in Grandma and Grandpa's house.
Do you remember when that was?
1942,
Wow.
the year we were married.
And prior to that,
Lamps.
what was it like walking out to the outdoor John?
Well, for a long time we didn't even have an outdoor John. We went to the chicken house. Maybe you shouldn't put that down. It was just way of life, and you didn't think anything about it.
Well, we didn't know any different then, but looking back, it was terrible. Oh yes, we had to bring in chips, corn cobs, and wood, because we burnt wood.
What kind of chips?
When they split the wood, there was chips off of the wood.
Oh, I was thinking cow chips.
No, thanks.
What would you say the hardest thing was about growing up in Pike County?
Walking 8 miles to school. But I graduated top of the class as valedictorian.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, we always had plenty to eat and plenty to wear. I would always wish my mom hadn't had such a hard life, but she did. But you never heard her complain. The only thing I miss is my son.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'm very happy.
And Roger passed away in...
92. He was never too busy to help. I have a friend here in town. I took her to Chicago with me. And she talks a mile a minute. And he was trying to do work. He brought home from work. And she was talking to him, so he just put his work up. And he just sat there and talked to her for an hour. And I thought, Lenora, shut up so he can do his work. But he never hurried her at all. He was just that type of person. Never too busy to help somebody. He was manager of Marshall Fields for 16 years. And then when he died, he was manager of Neiman Marcus.
So do you long at all for things as they were, or do you think things are basically better off today?
Well, I'd say he's better off. In some ways, we didn't have drugs and things, like they have now. But, I'd hate to go back drinking cistern water and going to outside John.
I think times get better every time. In time. No. I never sit and worry about what has happened, what's the use. Not much.